This is Just Nigeria. Coming up on the program, resumption of schools. We highlight efforts private and public school owners are making to ensure safe return of students to schools. Also, lockdown and learning. Meet the young man teaching children without access to radio, TV and the internet free of charge. And in South Africa, some doctors are forced to make life and death decisions as the numbers of coronavirus cases continue to rise. Plus,
my name is Jason Njoku, founder of Iroko TV. Check me out.
The entrepreneur producing and distributing Nigerian films to a global audience. Welcome to Just Nigeria from the BBC and Channels TV, where we bring you fresh perspective to stories being liked, shared and tweeted about by the social media generation. I am Wale Fakile. Straight on to our top story for this week. Schools across the country have now been shut for over 4 months to curb the spread of the coronavirus, following the federal government's recent announcement that students in exit classes can resume school in August. What measures are being taken by private and public schools to ensure the safety of teachers and their students? Just Nigeria's Ajoke Ulodse tells us more.
Some students have not been complying with the online classes because some students have gotten work, like they don't even pay attention to their books anymore because they are not really sure if WAEC is going to start this year.
16-year-old Samuel Obong is a final year student in one of Nigeria's public secondary schools. Since the coronavirus spread to the country, academic activities have been suspended indefinitely. The new normal for Samuel is listening to voice notes sent to his mom's phone by his teachers. Less than 5 of the more than 100 students in his class participate in this kind of e-learning. Most of them will have about 2 weeks to prepare and write the West Africa examinations from August 17.
I actually prefer physical class to the online class because in the physical class you get to interact with the teacher in the course of you are teaching. Because there are sometimes when a teacher is explaining a particular topic and you don't understand, you can ask her some questions and interact with her. And in physical class, this privilege, you have these privileges, but in online classes you don't get these privileges.
4 months after schools were shut across Nigeria, conversations on how to resume in-school learning are still ongoing. On the 27th of July 2020, Nigeria's Education Ministry announced a phased reopening of schools for students in its graduating classes to enable them prepare for exams. Samuel, like thousands of students in graduating classes across the country, are concerned about how prepared they will be when exams begin. In the first week of July, federal authorities published guidelines for safe reopening of schools. The guidelines included an assessment of risk involved and preparations to ensure social distancing. Meanwhile, non-payment of salaries and recurring costs for infrastructure maintenance mean private schools proprietors are eager to return to the classroom. Yomi Otubela is the leader of the National Association of Proprietors of Private Schools. He says private schools are ready to meet these guidelines.
We are more than ready for the resumption, especially as it affects the meeting the safety guidelines put together by federal government. I must say here that there is nothing in that guideline that is so unaffordable for schools. Everything there is within the reach of private schools. Most of the items there is about wash hand casing, use of nose masks, infrared thermometer, marking of spaces for social distancing, the little number of children in the classes, a separate isolation center apart from the existing PA.
With overcrowded classes in many of the country's public schools, how ready are state authorities to implement these guidelines?
Every one of us is entertaining the fear of that safety, because safety first before any other thing. As part of it, because of the population density in some of those schools, we have suggested to the government that they should spread them into various classes, and they told us that they have the provision of additional furnitures and all of that is they have done it to make sure that they can cope with that total number.
Like many in primary and secondary schools, university students are also looking forward to schools reopening. Deborah Chukudike is a final year scholarship student in one of Nigeria's private universities. Our frustrations are evident. Our plans for the mandatory postgraduate service are no longer feasible, as no date has been announced for academic activities to resume in tertiary institutions.
It was supposed to be my last semester in school, and myself and my colleagues, we came back to school with a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of things we planned to do, but everything crashed. And I think for about 3 months now, my school decided to come up with this virtual learning. At the beginning, it was like a nightmare because having to join classes on Zoom and Google Classroom and use of data, and they didn't provide data for us actually. So the work is on us and on our parents, who most of us, their jobs have been withheld, or some of us, they still run some little business. So it's really not been interesting. I never saw this coming. I'm worried that there might be a delay for my set to serve, because this is something that I've always looked forward to. Like, I've always wanted to wear that uniform, and yes, people call me, hey, Copper, how far? So I feel bad.
Deborah's worries equally shared by private universities, which continue to invest heavily to virtually teach their students. For some of them, the guidelines are achievable on campuses.
Well, private schools are run with private funds, not with government funds. Private schools have things to do, they have responsibilities. Government schools at the end of the day will receive funding from government, with which they can then sort out themselves. But private schools, it's not like that. No private school in this country receives a dime from the government. We don't receive a dime from the government. So if you keep us locked down interminably, what are you saying should happen to the staff? What are you saying should happen to the students? What will happen to to other people who benefit from the university? Okay, so I would agree that it is unnecessary to put all of us in the same boat. We are not, because our funding, our governance systems, they are definitely different. Okay, we should allow each one to, if each one can run on its own strength, why not?
The Academic Staff Union of Universities has also taken a stance on school resumption. It insists that safety measures must be implemented if lecturers in public universities are to return to classrooms.
We have always said that since the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, government did not give serious attention to the education sector. And we knew that at one time or the other, they will have to come back to it. So what we said in March, when the lockdown was becoming inevitable, was that, well, government should use the opportunity of the lockdown to address the challenges in the education sector. But that did not happen. We are saying that government may reopen the schools, but government must not reopen the schools without putting in place the necessary precautions as specified in the guidelines released by government itself.
So, beyond announcing resumption dates and publishing guidelines, how are federal authorities planning to ensure compliance?
The schools that will be reopening are schools that are centers for these exams, and only in respect of the exiting classes. Primary schools and all other classes are excluded from this decision-making process. The state of preparedness of each of these centers will inform how they open. I'm in discussions with my brother, the Minister of Environment, and we are also awaiting at the Ministry of Education. Wherever we see gaps in their state of preparedness, we will address and help get in there. If it is not possible, then we will not be able to use them.
The phased reopening of schools in Nigeria may be welcome news, but with some other countries on the continent shutting schools shortly after resuming, it is crucial for regulators to ensure safety measures are put in place and strictly implemented to avoid further spread of the coronavirus. Ajoke Hulotse, Gist Nigeria.